Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. I wanted to talk about something a little bit different in this particular video. I was inspired. I don't usually don't get political on this channel at all, and don't worry, I'm not going to dive into the details of political issues or anything on here. But I do want to talk about politics and music tonight. So inspired, by this new song that Bruce Springsteen just put out. Streets of Minneapolis. I don't know if you guys have heard it. If you haven't, I would recommend going to listen to it. I think it's a pretty remarkable song. And I kind of want to just talk about politics a little bit in general, politics and music. Talk about this song, why I think this song is very significant. You know, I don't get into politics all that much on this channel. I mean, I do have very strong political opinions, but I just haven't felt like this is the forum for that. I just wanted to stick to the music. Now, I will talk about politics if it's relevant to the music. A lot of times I'll be covering an artist or some music, and if there's a political angle to the music or the artist, talk about that and talk about those politics. But it's always, in relation to the music, whatever music we're talking about. And I know it's a cliche to say, but it's true. I do have friends and family very much on both sides of the political spectrum that we find ourselves in this country. I am on one side of that spectrum. I find it very hard to understand why someone is on the other side, but I have not been one to cut people off. I have not really cut friends or family off just because I disagree with them politically. I actually enjoy discussing politics, again, outside of this channel. Um, and I've only cut off a handful of people, and it's only been because they have gotten very personal and can't handle just talking about the political issues themselves, and they get into personal attacks, and then I'm out of there on that. But I'm okay if you disagree with me very strongly. If we can just kind of talk about the issues. I'm one of those guys who I've got friends that we can have very heated debates and discussions, and then we can go have dinner or something. Like I said, as long as you don't attack me personally on that stuff, it's kind of the way I've conducted it. You know, I gotta say I have very strong opinions. They've been getting stronger lately, just as things have been heating up lately. I'll be honest with you guys. I found myself, especially the past week or so, it was very, I don't know, not in a great place. I've been kind of angry. you know, I think a lot of us have. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. You know, uh, you could probably guess where I am politically. Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young, my two favorite artists I've talked about often on this channel. Well, there you go. Let's talk about this song, though. I'll talk about this song, and then I want to kind of get into the idea a little bit more of sort of politics, place, and music. So Springsteen did put out this new song, "Streets of Minneapolis." I believe today. I think it hit today. Maybe it was last night. I don't know, but very recently. Last night, today. And I gotta say, I have been listening to this song. I don't know, probably 10 times today. I think it's a remarkable song. I think it's a kind of a historic song. I think it's a song that is important. And I'm saying that just because I agree, disagree, whatever, with the politics of the song. I just think it's to me. I mean, it struck me in the tradition of, like, kind of Woody Guthrie, and so what music is supposed to do. At least political music. I mean, like, go listen to the song if you haven't. It's a pretty remarkable song. It's very direct, very detailed. He names names, you know, both kind of victims' names and names of people whose policies these are. And I don't know. 10 years from now, we're going to remember all these names. I don't know, but I think this song is in some ways, it's a historical document. It's a powerful song. I think kind of in the folk tradition, really. Anyway, That's the song itself. I mean, go check it out if you haven't. Politics and music. It, earlier today, I have to give credit. Kyle over at Track by Track. If you ever watched his channel, um, posted a video earlier today, kind of his reactions to this song, "Streets of Minneapolis." And he said some things that resonated with me that I really agreed with, and in part kind of inspired me. And I got some stuff I want to say too, and he echoed a lot of things that I have off long said. There are those people out there who don't want politics in their music. But what Kyle said today, and I've always felt this way too, what those people really mean is they don't agree with the politics that are being expressed by a particular artist or song. Then all of a sudden it's shut up and entertain us. Don't get all political in your music. It's BS. It's BS. Music, art has always been political. I mean, not all of it, but music and art reflects humanity. And that's politics, that's emotions, that's love, that's heartbreak, that's social commentary. It's everything. And music has always had an element of and art. It's always had an element of politics, and also challenging the powers that be, challenging status quo. I go back to Billie Holiday and "Strange Fruit." I don't know if you're familiar with that song. It's a very famous kind of jazz ballad. Billie Holiday, one of the great jazz singers of all time. You ever looked at the lyrics to that song? The song's about lynching, right? It's a very graphic song about the lynching that was occurring in the South post Reconstruction, all the way into the middle of the 20th century. But art has always played this role where you can couch these messages, or you can couch this information within art, within music, and it can get to a broader audience. There are people who are just listening to this jazz song. It's like, wait a minute, what is she saying? Right? And I think that's an important role that art has always played. So I don't know, people who say politics don't belong in art. I think that's nonsense. Do I listen to artists whose opinions I don't agree with? Yes, I do. I mean, we just did, man, we just did a little while back, like a 4 video series on Van Morrison. I love Van Morrison. I don't agree with him politically a lot. That's okay. I love his music. I'm a fan of Eric Clapton. I don't agree with all of his politics either. You know, I don't like Ted Nugent, but it's not because of his politics. I think his music I don't know. A couple of his tunes are fun, but mostly I think his music's bad. That's why I don't listen to Ted Nugent. I don't not listen to him because of his political views. So I don't know. Springsteen, has been a lightning rod in recent, past 10 years. He has spoken up a lot, both in music and just spouting off in interviews or whatever. And yeah, sometimes it can be a little grating. I do admit, but I always find it funny, 'cause I follow, comments on article like today. There was a New York Times article about this new song, and of course, I got sucked into all the comments, underneath. And there's a lot of people in support of Springsteen, a lot of people criticizing him. But what I always found irritating were these comments of like, "Oh, has been looking for attention. Springsteen sucks anyway. I never liked his music." I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there who never liked Springsteen's music. I think a lot of those people is just, they don't like his political views, so they're gonna like now say, his music was never any good. I think that's nonsense. I think about the reaction of Robert De Niro, right? By any objective standard, um, one of the great actors ever, right? Like Godfather 2 and Goodfellas and Taxi Driver and Raging Bull and just amazing performances. But that he's been very outspoken politically in recent years. Now, you see all this stuff now. Oh, De Niro sucks. His movies are terrible. Get out of here. I mean, fine. He irritates you. You don't like his politics, but kind of going back revisionist history and saying a Goodfellas sucks because you don't like how De Niro feels about this or that. It's just dumb. It's dumb. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of my views on it. Um, and, it's funny. You hear people talk about, oh, I like Springsteen back, before we got all political. Bruce has always been political. I mean, born in the USA. It was like today. It was funny. Some of the comments in this New York Times article about the new song. There are several people said, "Well, man, it's not born in the USA." It's like, have you listened to the lyrics to that song? It's a protest song, right? I mean, Bruce has been political a lot in his music, a lot, right? You just haven't been listening, carefully enough. I don't know. It's I think it's kind of crazy. One thing that hit me, and honestly, one of the main things that really hit me to make this video is as I was listening to this song over and over today, I what struck me the similarities with Ohio. Neil Young's Ohio, or Crosby, Stills and Nash song, but Neil Young's song Ohio, right? You can find it on So Far. It was released as a single, but it's been on multiple hits collections and whatnot of Neil's and Crosby, Stills and Nash's. There's a lot of similarities, right? Yeah. In case you didn't know, Neil Young wrote that song Ohio in 1970 in response to the shootings at Kent State, right? The Vietnam War protests, the student protests, happening all over universities at the time. And Kent State in Ohio, there was student protests that some of the authorities felt was getting out of hand. So the National Guard was called in. It was a very confusing situation. It's interesting if you actually kind of study what happened at Kent State. I mean, in that case, some of the students were being very aggressive with the guard, and a lot of the guardsmen were young kids, the same age as those students, and panicked and started firing. Right, and 4 students were killed at Kent State. Neil Young had a kind of a visceral reaction to that. He immediately wrote that song, the song Ohio. It's one of his most amazing songs, one of the great protest songs. And I mean, Neil wrote that song, immediately called Crosby, Stills and Nash. They went into the studio and recorded it, and the song was released, I think, within a week, right? Of writing, recording, and release. It was rushed out as a single. Very similar here, right? Well, obviously, this incident took place this last weekend, right? We're here Wednesday night now. Bruce, I was reading on his website. He was talking about this song. He wrote it this weekend, obviously recorded it, and here we are Wednesday, and it's out. So yeah, you kind of have those parallels with Ohio, and both are, however you feel about the situations. I don't want to get into that, but both are reactions to, at least from the perspective of the songwriters, kind of overreaching, overbearing, state power, kind of run amok and resulting in death of civilians. And yeah, so there's a lot of similarities there. Both, I think, have a raw anger to them. Ohio has lasted the test of time, and I think this song will too. This song has struck a nerve. I've seen it all over. I mean, it's gotten a lot of plays for just being put out today. I've seen the numbers. I go back and check. It's probably way higher now. So it has struck a nerve. It really has. Oh, both ways. A lot of people who don't like the song at all. Obviously, but yeah, we'll kind of wrap it up here with this. I've been a Bruce Springsteen fan and a Neil Young fan since I was elementary school. I mean, back in the early to mid '80s, early '80s, whatever the years were. And I've stuck with those guys, and I will say tonight that I have never been prouder to be a Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young fan, both of those guys. We'll just leave it at that. So let's hear it in the comments. I'm almost hesitant to say, but let's talk about it. Well, have you heard the song? What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you think of the song? Do you like my parallel with Ohio, or do you think I'm off base? Talk about that. What are your thoughts of politics and music? Does it turn you off? Do you like it? Can you even listen to artists that you don't agree with? That's an interesting topic. I mean, it's easy to listen to artists you agree with, but can you listen to artists you don't agree with? Still admire their work. The only thing I don't want to get into, I do not want to get into the actual political issues of the day. I'm not going to argue that stuff. It's not what this channel is for, all right? But let's talk about the place of politics in music. I think that's an interesting issue. Well, anyway, we'll see you next time. We'll be back to regularly scheduled programming next time, I promise. Although, in fact, I'm very excited about the next video. We're gonna do a deep dive into a close associate of Neil Young, someone I've been wanting to cover for a long time, Stephen Stills. I want to get into a kind of deep dive into Stephen. Well, he also has gotten very political over the years sometimes, but I want to get into Stephen Stills' work. So I kind of want to analyze him as an artist. I'm going to call it The Problem with Stephen Stills, like I had this, what I titled my first Van Morrison video too, because there's some issues with Stephen Stills, and I think it's fascinating. So I want to get into that, but also get into his music. We'll rank his albums, his solo work. I want to rank his albums. Anyway, so we'll get into that next time. We'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.